here today with my good friend and mentor, Meg, and we are going to record a little podcast today, just talking about some things that are around for us. And yeah, I just thought, Meg, nice to see you this morning. I can see you've got a nice cup of tea.
I have. In my favourite mug, it says, "Change starts with you." It's my morning mug.
Ah, very good message for the
Yeah,
day. Start
yeah,
the day well. So do
absolutely.
you want to just give us a little bit of an introduction, Meg, as to who
Yeah.
you are, what you do?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, my love. I'm very excited to lean in. And yeah, I'm like still landing in the space, as you can probably tell. I'm a bit tired this morning. But yeah, really grateful to be here and to be leaning into this conversation because it's something that I think we could both speak about all day long. But yeah, so I'm Meg and I'm a somatic embodiment coach. So essentially help women, mainly women at the moment, help women to either receive and cultivate more nourishment in their day-to-day life. Perhaps it's women that feel burnt out, stressed, yearning for a work-life balance. They're yearning to honor themselves and look after themselves more deeply. And supporting women as well within that to really connect to their own sense of empowerment and liberation. So I offer these things because it's what I've needed my whole life and it's what I still need to this day. So yeah, I support women to really go after their dreams, to reconnect with their zest for life again. And quite often, as you'll know at the moment, supporting a lot of women to support their businesses and their heart-led visions and what they want to create, not only as a passion of theirs, but as a way of living as well, as a source of income, as a way that they can really create a lifestyle that supports them day to day, but also supports others. So yeah, as there's much more I could speak to about somatic embodiment. It's a lot about nervous system regulation, a lot about building the mind-body connection after living most of my life being disconnected from the body, and living in the busyness of the mind, telling myself all of the shoulds of who I need to be, what I should be doing. So it's been a real journey for me as well of really reconnecting with the wisdom of my body and starting to trust myself more deeply and to really honor my body and all of its wisdom. So it's an ongoing journey, my love. It's an ongoing journey,
Yeah.
but one I'm devoted to for the rest of my days.
Yeah, I love that, and that's one of the reasons that's how we met. Really, is me hearing you speak about those things online, on Instagram. You sort of came on my radar, and you were talking about those things like coming back to the body, coming home to this sort of deep trust. And I was just at a point in my life where I really needed to hear those things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's how we've sort of come together, isn't it?
Mm,
I saw you talking about that, and I was in the pandemic with two small children,
yeah.
feeling quite disconnected, as you talked about, disconnected from myself and from my body. And I was doing, busy, busy, busy. And I saw your gorgeous Instagram posts that were saying, what you've just spoke about, and it started to really speak to me. And yeah, so we've been working together. We've known each other since, I don't know, May, isn't it? I think May this year or just before.
Perhaps, yeah. I think it might have even been earlier than that this year. But it feels in the most beautiful way, like a lifetime, like I've always known you. Like we only
Yeah,
met in person, didn't we? And I was like, I can't believe this is the first time we're meeting in person because I feel like I've known you for so long.
yeah,
Yeah, the power of Instagram and the online world.
yeah. But I've really found the combination of the somatics, which is the first thing that was speaking to me, was like, oh, what is this? This sort of sense of going back to my body, and then mixing it with um my business. It always feels really strange, but at the moment I'm in the sort of really early stages of building like a well-being service.
Mm.
And the way that you're sort of guiding us to do that feels really different. It's heart-led, and it's sort of coming back to the body, um, which I'm finding really, really helpful.
Oh, it feels so beautiful to witness and journey and walk alongside you on this path. And yeah, as you can sense from the past few months, like how much this work lights me up as well. You know, when we're having conversations and you're sharing your wisdom and I'm sharing mine, and then it's like this deep remembering between us that's happening, isn't it? And like this deep
Yeah.
returning to our own wisdom and trusting in that as well.
Yeah.
So yes, so excited to see what comes. You know, we've already been on such a journey over the past few months, so to see what comes from the next, it feels like an exciting next chapter. An
It
exciting.
does. It does. And actually, that really leads into we were thinking about what we could talk about today. And a quote that I saw recently was she remembered who she was and the game changed. And it stood out to me, and I saw it and I thought, okay.
Mm,
And another version of that was she embraced who she was and the
mm,
game changed. And I know your business, Meg, is called She Embraced It All.
mm.
And it really resonated with me, especially this remembering of who I am, which is something that's happened for me a lot this year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just thought I would put that out there and just see what came up for you when we talk about a remembering of
Mm.
ourselves or an embracing of ourselves as we are.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just about
Yeah.
sense a sneeze coming, my love, so you'll have to bear with me. It may come back. I was just like preparing for it. Yes. So with that, my love, just repeat that last bit because I was in the middle of a half sneeze.
Um, so yeah, if you could just, if there's anything that comes up or anything that is around for you, if you hear about this sort of remembering of who you are or an embracing of who you are
Yeah.
and how that's changed things for you.
Wow. Yeah, I love that question. And I'm going to be conscious about how much I deep dive into this because I could be here all day speaking to that question. I love it so much. Yeah, the whole premise of she embraces it all was born essentially through my crumbling. It was through my Saturn return, actually, when I was age 29. Didn't know what a Saturn return was at the time. Still not entirely sure exactly how to describe what it is, but I know it's something to do with astrological events in your birth chart and all that stuff. And essentially, when I was 29, everything started to crumble, you know, and it was this sense of like, I was finding who I was more and more, the more that I was following my joy and the more that I was remembering really what was important for me, such as something as simple but as profound as remembering what my values were,
Mm,
you know, and fundamentally, one of my core values is compassion and kindness and non-judgment, you know. And so the more that I was connecting with my own journey, my own personal growth and my own self-discovery journey through counseling, therapy, coaching, the more that I started to get to know myself and what was important for me
mm,
and the person that I wanted to be, you know, the person I wanted to remember, who I always was. And I started to notice different aspects of my life that weren't aligning to that as such. And I'd lived a lot of my life feeling like I was in this box, very much like restricted and keeping myself really small and hidden.
mm,
And my biggest fear was being an inconvenience, you know, getting in the way or saying something that might upset someone or inconveniencing someone just by being. I remember to this day walking into, you know, whether it was my CEO's office or my manager's room, and I'd be like shoulders down, head down. And every time I'd walk into a room, I'd apologize. I'd be like, I'm so sorry to interrupt, or I'm so sorry, you know, and it was almost like I was just apologizing for existing.
yeah.
Um, and it really hit home to me how much I'd been keeping myself in this cage and in this box really since the path of love, you know, which is a retreat that I know we both feel very passionately about. um for me, I'd started to get a glimmer of somatic awareness and what it meant in terms of working more holistically with the not only the mind after so many years of psychology, but working with the body. And it was in one of my creative supervision sessions that my supervisor actually reflected back to me rather than all of the words that I was sharing with him and all of the thought processes of my week and keeping everything together, and I'm managing everything. It's stressful, but it's okay. I know what I'm going to do. Dot, 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 dot. Tick, tick, tick. And he just looked at me and he just let go of all of the words. And he just looked at me and he said, I'm sensing some sadness. And I just burst wide open. The tears came. And I was like, how did he know? Like, so many years of trying to keep it all together and put this plaster this face,
Yeah.
be this little Miss Ray of sunshine, everything's fine. And he just saw beneath that. He could sense in my body that I was holding a lot of emotion. And for me, I was like, wow, I want to hear more about this, about how we can connect more with the body and emotion, what's stored in the body. And then that's when I went on a journey into a deep remembering. The path of love for me, my first deep dive into somatic experiencing really brought home to me how much I was storing in my body and how much I was keeping myself small, even to my the width of my stance in my feet. I would keep my feet like so closely together, and I just, every part of me, even my breath, I would try and keep small, so I'd have a very shallow breath. And so it became a journey through my training with the somatic school, and it became a journey of remembering my breath, remembering the sensations in my body, remembering that I have a choice, and remembering what it feels like to breathe more fully into myself and to connect with my heart, to connect with my womb space, just a real reconnection to me. And it was in that coming home to myself in all of these different ways, even through my senses, connecting gradually, slowly but surely. It was like collecting fragments of myself.
Yeah.
And then starting to come back to this, oh, here I am physically. Like, here I am. Like, it's actually okay to like be here in my body. And that was the start of a very big journey to like so much that wanted to be embraced and liberated. My creativity, my
Yeah.
passion, my kindness, my zest for life, my joy, like just all of these things, my sensuality. There is still so much, that's being reclaimed there.
Yeah.
But it started with coming home to
Yeah.
this, coming right home to this. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I mean, there's just so many things to keep us distracted these days, isn't there, with our phones and just life. And yeah, obviously at the moment I'm a mum of two small kids. And they're both at school now, so things are easier. I've got that time to be with myself and to remember myself and to have a cup of tea quietly. And but for quite a few years, it was a lot of not being, feeling like I wasn't here and I wasn't in my body. I didn't have those resources that I have now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that coming back to the body, that sort of like, even in the depths of early motherhood, for example, with two small kids,
Mm.
even with all the giving and the rushing and the doing, just to know, to be so resourced that I can connect in with myself, take that fuller breath. I think, okay, what do I need right now? I need to sit down for 5 minutes in the fresh air and just take a breath and, yeah, look after myself a little bit. And it can be in like the really small things, or even in the way that I'm talking to myself, the language. Oh, I can't cope with all this, I'm really overwhelmed. And it's true, there's many times I've felt really overwhelmed, but being in that connection and having sort of a not a different narrative, but maybe also sort of a spectrum of way to connect with myself. And I wondered, actually, just leading from that, you've really helped me with that softer approach to connecting with myself. So often it's always been like the all or nothing, or yeah, I need to have a week in a spa, rather than what about if it's just 5 minutes outside having a cup of tea and a few deep breaths. And yeah, I wonder if there's anything you can speak to around that in terms of how we are more loving with ourselves, I suppose.
Absolutely, absolutely. That continues to be the biggest invitation for me every single day. This is why I love what you're sharing as well, because every time I see what you're posting and sharing, it brings me back, brings me back to that presence. It brings me back to joy. It brings me back to like embracing the moment, whether that's the breath or dance or whatever it might be. I really love that about your beautiful content, because for me, that's what helps me come back to that more loving kind of voice. It's when I'm in the future or the past, or like I'm spiraling into my thoughts and I'm not aware, or
Mhm.
perhaps I am aware, but I'm not choosing a more empowered, a more loving way to be with myself. And so it was just this week, out of nowhere. Well, I say out of nowhere, there was like a whole series of events that kind of rippled into my day and into my week. And I, for the first time in quite a long time, really was met with this inner critic, and I'm always a learner, I'm always a beginner, but it kind of took me by surprise, feeling like, oh, I know how to be compassionate with myself, and it's like the core of who I am. And so I'll just be compassionate with myself. But I was really taken back by how strong this inner critic was, and like how judgmental that voice was that was coming through.
Mhm.
And the fear that spirals from that, of like this place of lack, of like you're not good enough, or you messed up, or what if this happens, what if and all of the what ifs start to come in.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest factors in this shift for me, and learn how to be more loving with myself, is to bear witness, to what is unfolding, and I used to be very analytical. So if I was thinking a certain way, if I noticed a thought, I'd ask a lot, why am I doing that to myself? Why am I talking like that to myself? Why? And it was almost like meeting myself with like this pointing finger of like, what, why are you like that? And it was, even that question alone was judgmental, even though it was coming from a good place, like a loving, yeah, why are you talking to yourself so harshly? So rather than question and try and analyze and dissect it, which I'd been doing most of my life, it was more of a shift from, rather than doing to myself, it was, how can I be with myself?
Yeah.
So rather
Uh-huh.
than, you need to change that thought, you need to fix this, you need to get yourself to a breath work, or you need to go for a jog, or all these things, you need to do this.
Yeah.
It was one way of like another thing that I was doing to myself, rather than just being with. And so most of my life, I always kind of imagined, it sounds a bit weird, but I would imagine like a version of me sometimes sat in a dark hole, and then I'd come in as the adult self and I'd try and pull her out of it. And I'd be like, come on, we need to get you out of here to a better place. Whereas nowadays, it's almost like I sit with her for a while,
Yeah. Oh,
you
I
know?
love this. This is
Yeah.
so
It's just
refreshing. Yeah.
sit with you for a while. Like, it's okay for you to be here. I'm here. You
Yeah.
don't have to be here on your own. I'm just, and like, I say her because she's often a much younger version of me that's
Mhm.
coming through,
Yeah.
in this narrative or story that I'm telling myself. And so with that, I've learned how to notice when she's there. I'm like, oh, okay, I can notice the inner critic coming through, or I can notice that younger part of myself that's worrying that she's not good enough, or I can notice that fearful part that's scared to do something different because what if I fail, or what if this? And it's like, how can I notice first and foremost? How can I notice what story's there? Because as soon as I notice, I'm no longer in it. It's like
Yeah.
in that bird's eye view, and I'm observing. So it's like it's a part of me, rather than it being the
Yeah.
whole of me and feeling like all consumed. It's like, oh, there's a part of me that's feeling like I failed. There's a part of me that's feeling like I'm not good enough. How can I meet that part of me as the adult loving self? And then I get to sit with that part of me. I get to soothe her. I get to ask, what do you need? And sometimes she just needs a cup of tea, or sometimes she needs like a gentle like self hug or a deeper breath. Sometimes she wants me to journal for a little bit to try and understand what it is that she's needing. And sometimes it's like as simple as a hand on the heart with two powerful words that will never ceases to amaze me how powerful these words are, to just be with her and just to offer this sense of, oh, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
can feel my, having a warmth here as you're speaking about those things. And it's just such maybe a really new way for people, like for myself, to relate to myself.
Yeah, for sure. Because so many of us haven't been met with that level of compassion or understanding before. We've always questioned, well, why are you like that? Or so
Yeah, the why question.
to actually be with and say, it's okay for you to be here. You don't need to change. You don't need to do anything. I'm just going to be with you. And then to see how that naturally dissolves. It's like as if a child was crying and we'd say, like, why are you upset? Why are you crying?
Yeah,
Chances
yeah,
are you'd get more upset. Whereas if we met and sat down with them and said, oh, I can see you're feeling really sad. Yeah, I know it. I know it's hard. I know.
yeah,
Chances are they'd be
yeah,
like, yeah, yeah, it is hard.
yeah.
And then they might
It's
start to,
Yeah, I think it's the being sort of seen, valued, and heard. And I think you talked briefly about something called the path of love, which is you recommended it to me. You've been on it as well, and it's an 8-day retreat. And we won't disclose too much, but within that we do share, what's around for us. And I think and even in connection and sharing circles where people are starting to come together and sharing like we did on Saturday, what's around for us, but with nobody giving sort of unsolicited advice, nobody jumping in and telling their story. It's just that sort of being seen, valued, heard by yourself, and then also from others. And oftentimes people really connect and they're like, God, I felt like that before, or can I give you a hug? Or, we just sit and we sit with those feelings. And you're right, it is like they just start to dissipate and soften, and you're like, oh, it's like you've managed to bring it out into the light.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's the power of being with, the power of non-judgment for me and compassion and like, okay, and this level of seeing like you described there, my love, like this sense of like just being with and offering myself this sense of it makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense why
Yeah.
it makes sense. So that there's like this level of it's okay that you're feeling like that because in today's society, I feel that we're so often even in some of the wellness spaces, I find, we're so often encouraged to change or to fix something or to like do something to get over something or to like get rid of a part of ourselves.
Mhm.
Actually, returning to that beautiful question of like, what are we remembering and embracing? For me, it's been a reclaiming rather than trying to get rid parts of myself or like release something and banish it out of my experience. It's like, how can I hold it closely for a while and like tend to it a little
Yeah.
more before I try and like get rid of parts of me? How can I harness and meet those heavier parts of me with a lot of love? So it continues to be a journey every single day, my love, as you know.
Yeah, practice. Yeah, I mean, it's such a softer way of relating to ourselves instead of the war that can go on inside, this constant
Yeah,
why, or you should be doing this and you should be doing that. But this idea of meeting yourself where you're at again and again and again and practicing that.
absolutely. How do you feel that's been for you in terms of this remembering, the embracing, the loving kindness to self? Like, where are you at with all that at the moment?
Yeah, I've had such an amazing year. When the pandemic was on, I I hit, I would say, almost a burnout. I was really overwhelmed with the pandemic. My girls were really small. My parents were waving at me through the window. My husband was working sort of 10 hours to support the family, and I was just like treadmill. Duh. And I'd been sort of a stay-at-home mum now for 5 years. Before that, I was 17 years as a physiotherapist in the NHS and for Nuffield and Bupa. And I'd just gone from being this independent, seeing 13 people a day for Nuffield fast forward so many years later to this version where I was so unseen, so unheard, just on this treadmill. And obviously the pandemic had hit, and I just felt very also under-resourced to meet myself in as I needed to be met, basically. So I was like, I need to do something about this. So I did some therapy as well, Gestalt therapy, which I found fantastic. And my therapist was a woman who was absolutely amazing and started to introduce me to a much softer narrative. And actually, she really embodied what we'd call like the healthy masculine and feminine energies. And it was the first time, I think, in a long time that I'd seen that, and this softer narrative started to come in. And I was like, oh, okay, this feels good. This feels feminine. And I began to read books and poetry and things, softer, more feminine things started to come back into my life. Like, oh, I do like poetry. I do like drawing. I do like space. I needed to come out of the do. Yeah, just a lot of stories that had probably been built up within me from being as young as 8 years old.
Yeah.
And then what followed is saw your stories on Instagram, and it was again more of this softer, more feminine voice. And my ears pricked up and we stayed in touch. Then you mentioned the path of love. So in June of this year, I went to Skipton and did this sort of 8-day retreat. And within the retreat, there was quite a lot of dancing. And I love, like, even just thinking about dancing, I'm like, I love dancing. I did ballet till I was 22, and I love music. I'm one of those people, when you're in Morrison's or doing your shopping, I can tell you what song's on. Like, but I just am really attuned to music and dancing. And once I got dancing on this retreat with a group of other people, I started to remember who I was. I was like, oh my God, do you remember this? I think I remember at one point I was dancing to the Pussycat Dolls. Don't you wish your girlfriend was hot like me? And I can't remember. I hadn't danced to that song since I was like 22. And we were doing it in a group and we were all celebrating each other. So I felt like, wow, not only have I remembered who I am on this retreat, people are celebrating me as I am. And I remember there was even really gentle songs and gentle music came on when my body wanted to really just flare. And like my hands wanted to be really gentle and soft. And it was just such a huge remembering of what I was when I was young, a young girl. I was quite shy, I was quite gentle. And then layers of life has happened, and I've been in my very sort of, I've been quite masculine in my energies. And just remembering the feminine side for me over this last year has been, just like giving me a warm, like gooey feeling inside to remember that actually it's okay to want to draw and to dance without a Saturday night out, without the bottle of wine. So sometimes if I know that if I wake up in the morning and I've got like an energy that's quite like, oh my God, I've got so much to do today, and I can feel it's almost like compacted within my body, I'll connect in now and be like, okay, let's go in the bedroom. Nobody needs to know. I put 2 songs on. So I'll put like a Moby song on and I'll just flare and I'll dance, and everything softens, everything gets a bit more wavy, and then I can bring in that essence. So the remembering part dance has been a huge part of that for me. And then as I finished the path of love, your mentorship came in. It's been the best combination because path of love has opened up all this stuff. And then you've swooped in like this like almost like a safety net of like carrying me through that even more. Like, and I'll maybe sort of say, oh, I don't want to do this today. And you'll maybe phrase it of, how can you make it feel like you want to do it? Can you light a candle? Can you get yourself a cup of something nice? What do you feel like doing next in your business? And the combination of the path of love and your mentorship has really helped me to both remember and embrace all parts of all parts of me. And you've brought in something called the archetypes as well, which I'd never heard of. And I've found that to be really, really helpful when it comes to talking about embracing ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
could talk about the archetypes all day long. And yeah, it feels like it really allows us to reclaim all these different parts of ourselves, and
Yeah.
you've weaved in the feminine and the masculine there, because that's something we work with a lot as well, the yin, the yang, not only within our businesses, but within our own expressions. And that's why I love when we work with the queen and the lover and the mother, the maiden, the artist, the wise woman. We're reclaiming all of
Yeah.
these parts of ourselves that exist in any one moment, and it's like parts of us. It's almost like trying on a new coat, if we were to say, oh, imagine if you were to try on a coat with like the queen energy today,
Yeah.
would the queen look like this, or would she look like this, and it's like just trying on a different coat and being like, oh yeah, like how does this feel in my body? And yeah, like I love that essence that you return to there of like the felt sense. Because after trying to do business in my head for so many years, it's like I'm not trying to get rid of the mind, but I'm trying to link and bridge it now with the body so that they work in harmony together rather than
Yeah.
in that constant battle. So I love that. And yeah, as I was hearing you sharing all of that, Colette, it was like, wow, just it was like a remembrance within myself as I was hearing you share around all these different parts, the feminine, the wavy. I know that's a term that we've used a lot, like that wavy feminine, the flowiness. That was a big one for me. Like after so many years of being so rigid in my body,
Mhm.
like to learn how to be wavy and like feminine and flowy again, and to allow myself to trust in that. What feels good in my body right now? If I was just to move
Yeah.
my body just because it feels good, how might that be? And so to trust in that and to trust in that wisdom. And also, I know a big topic that we've discussed before, like this liberation of like rage as well, the
Yeah.
Bali energy, and like we get to be soft and feminine, we get to be feminine and fiery, we get to be all of these different things, it's like harnessing all of that and then bringing in the healthy masculine as well, which has been a journey and continues to be for both of us. I feel like how we can cultivate this healthy presence and devotion and stability within
Mhm.
ourselves. And for me, the healthy masculine feels really rooted, really rooted into my feet. And so, oh, yes, I could talk about all of this
I know.
and remembering all day. There's so much there, so much
There
juice.
is so much there. There really is. And I think we've slowly run out of time for today, but we were going to talk a little bit about the challenges of weaving that then into sort of our daily life, and how do we keep remembering her and keep remembering ourselves as we go through real life, or normal daily life. But maybe I think that's going to be a whole other half hour at least to talk about
Yeah,
that.
for sure. Yeah, it does. It continues to be a daily invitation, that's for sure. Because,
Yeah.
we are very much in a day-to-day world in many ways, with all the distractions, like you mentioned earlier, where we're encouraged to kind of stay outside of ourselves or to buy this thing, or to watch this thing or to distract with this thing. And it continues to be a daily invitation for me to notice when I'm trying to numb out or I'm
Yeah.
trying to like sometimes we need that, don't we? Sometimes we need to watch a few episodes of something or just offer ourselves that bit of like self-soothing. But then it's like an invitation of like, where can I take my power back?
Yeah.
Where am I going into more of a helpless, like stuck feeling? And where can
Yeah.
I step back into my power, and where can I meet myself with a really loving, empowering voice and
Yeah.
take that next choice that feels most loving and most empowering, whatever that may be. So yes, it's a continuous invitation, my love, but one we could talk about, like you said, on a whole other podcast.
Absolutely. I think this is just the beginning of it, just an opening of a conversation around a lot of things, but so much. I know we call it medicine amongst us, our group, and there is just so much medicine there and so much wisdom. And thank you for doing that this morning and bringing your experiences. And yeah, I mean, we talk about like paving a new way or creating a new way for people that maybe had this like feeling of discontent. And yeah, it feels like these conversations are a really good place to start with that.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, my love. It's been beautiful. And we can pop our details below, can't we? So people can come and connect with us if they have any questions.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you so much, my love. I
Okay.
hope you have a lovely day.
And you.
Thank you, my love.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.